In the mayoral candidate series. Today we have David Zokaites with us, who is one of the 5 candidates for mayor. The wonderful thing about this format is we can go as deep as we want, and you're going to have an opportunity to ask questions as well. I would urge you to hold off on your questions until we're well into the conversation. We may already cover the topic that you're interested in, but if I don't cover that topic or David doesn't respond in the way the depth you want, then you can write your questions right on those index cards, pass them forward, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. This program is likely to go well past an hour, so if you have to leave after an hour, we understand, but we probably will go a little past an hour with this program. Thank you to the Village Cooperative. Thank you to Greg LaFollette for coming up with this idea, but also thank you to the residents here, the volunteers who've made all this possible, and thank you for being such gracious hosts. David Zokaites, I have known of David for many, many years, and he is a frequent speaker in the public comment portion of our city council meetings. Greg and I were both chairs of the Sioux Falls Board of Ethics. David attended many of our meetings and would address us on a frequent basis. So we are familiar with David, but we really don't know David. So I would ask David to lead off with a personal introduction of yourself, David. Tell us about where you grew up, your upbringing. Tell us about your education, your family, your work history.
That's a lot to talk about, but here we go. I grew up in suburban Pittsburgh. Now, it's a whole lot different there than it is here because we've got hills that actually count for hills and trees everywhere and water in a big way. And the Big Sioux River is a little creek compared to the rivers in Pittsburgh. And we have a city that goes on that's really quite different. So when I first came to South Dakota, I drove over the Big Sioux River and saw the sign and tried to figure out where the river was. It took me a little while to get used to the beauty of South Dakota, but it does have its own separate, distinct beauty. If you're used to trees and all of a sudden there's no trees and there's prairie, it takes a little while to get used to it. But yes, it's a beautiful place, and the sky goes on forever. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, always loved the outdoors. My dad was a scoutmaster, so naturally I was a Boy Scout, and I excelled there and got all the way up to Eagle, like most of my brothers. One kind of bailed out at life, but the rest of us made Eagle. High school, I did well and went to college in Rochester, New York, at the Rochester Institute of Technology. I chose a technical program, more engineering and science and less photography. But the name of the program was Imaging and Photographic Science. Did a lot of study in computer programming and remote sensing. And then from there, I found a job.
Was that a bachelor's degree that you received there?
That's a bachelor's degree. Okay. Also, for my bachelor's degree, I had to do a research thesis. Not too common among bachelor's degrees. It took me forever to get it done, but after I did get it done, I was able to get it published, which is quite the remarkable feat for a mere Bachelor of Science research degree.
Did you go on to get your master's?
I never did.
Okay.
I thought about it once when the opportunity presented itself at Eros, but I had 2 kids at home, and I figured that the kids were more important than the degree.
So after college, what happened?
I got a job out at Eros Data Center.
So that was your first move to South Dakota?
Yes, it was.
What was your position at Eros?
Photographic engineer, one, I believe, was the title at the time.
All right. And you worked at Eros for how long?
17 years or thereabouts.
All right. And what have you done since then?
Oh, I've kept working. My career out at Eros went through a lot of twists and wiggles. One thing leads to another. I started off as a photographic engineer and remote sensing programmer, and ended up as a database administrator instead. Still heavy on the computer stuff, a little more systems analysis and figuring out how connections are. I worked out at data center as a DBA for a while, database administrator. And I went from one company or another for pretty much the rest of my professional career.
So are you working now, David?
I'm not getting paid for my work, but I am working.
Because running for office is work.
Yeah, that's a lot of hard work. And I've been kind of doing that pretty much full-time for like 8 years. That's why I've got so many detailed policy plans and so many PowerPoints and such a marvelous understanding of how local government works, because I've been studying it for so very long.
Well, we're going to delve into that. Tell us about your family.
Oh, I've got 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and now I've got 2 daughters. They're about 33 years old. One's a little more, one's a little less. One's in Utah working in chemistry and biology, and the other's here doing some very interesting things. She's an artist, works part-time at Lowe's. She's got another business with her husband.
Very good. So my recollection is that you have run for Sioux Falls mayor twice before. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
2018 and 2022.
I'm getting better at it.
Then 2 years ago, in 2024, you ran for city council for the Northeast District.
Yes.
Okay. You've not succeeded in any of those yet, but you keep trying. So tell us, why the interest in public service? Why the interest specifically in the mayor's office?
The world is broken and we need to fix it. There's a lot of problems in local government and state government and national government, and I understand why they're there, and I feel compelled to try to address these problems. And city council, I hate to say it, but it's pretty impotent. All the action in Sioux Falls is in the mayor's office. He sets the tone for the council meetings. He runs the meetings. He sets the agenda for the meetings, and pretty much everything that the administration proposes passes. So if I have a progressive campaign and I want to do things a little different, I think if I was on city council, I would just be frustrated and swimming upstream for 4 years. Whereas at the mayor's office, you've got some real capability to actually do things.
So let's talk about what is the mayor's job. Give us a job description for the mayor's role, key responsibilities, and so forth.
The primary job of the mayor of Sioux Falls is to have a solid vision of where he wants the city to go. That's it. The vision is primary, because everything else he pretty much has to allocate. Day-to-day operations, he's got a city administrator to hire. The next level down, he's got department heads to oversee. But the one thing that he has to do that nobody else can do is have the vision of where the city needs to go. And I've got that nailed down like nobody's business.
Okay, so regardless of who's elected, what do you think are the essential personal qualities and qualifications of any successful mayor?
Well, there's a couple of different ways of measuring
Qualities
success.
and qualifications.
Okay, there's a couple different ways of measuring success. One is, did you get the job in the first place? And the other is how well you did the job. I think you're talking about how well you do the job. Okay, so good skills that a mayor should have is you should be approachable and open and honest. You've got to be able to accept adversity and diversity. There's a lot of problems that the city has, and they're going to come beating on your door, and you should have to be able to open the door and talk to these people and see what's going on. And then you should have enough intellectual wherewithal to sort through all the noise and figure out what's really happening, and then be able to figure out a good vision with the help of your staff and allocate that vision. So being able to allocate responsibility is an important skill that's absolutely critical, along with all these other things.
Let's talk about character and integrity. As you go on in life and as a father, as a citizen, as a candidate, are there certain guiding principles, I don't know, half a dozen or a dozen guiding principles that you hold yourself to?
There's a bunch.
Give us your top 5.
Well, I'll give you the top one, and that would be nice to other people.
Okay.
I think if you fail on that, then you're going to fail on pretty much everything else. Now I don't tend to quote the Bible too often because it's been so sorely abused in modern governance, but Jesus had some really good ideas, and I think primary among those good ideas that Jesus had was being nice to other people.
Okay, so be nice. Number 1.
To love your neighbor.
Okay.
And that concept is so important that I put it on my yard sign. I don't have very many of them out there, But that's really important. Love your neighbor. Okay. And what else did you want? More guiding principles?
Yeah, give us half a dozen in total.
Protect democracy. And you don't do that with dishonesty or greed. You do it with openness and integrity. I don't know. Pretty soon we're going to have the Boy Scout pledge coming up here.
Well, that's okay. I mean, do you remember the Boy Scout pledge?
Scout is trustworthy, loyal, honest, friendly, brave, courteous, kind, obedient. Well, sometimes obedience is not appropriate depending upon who's trying to give you direction.
Do you think the Scout oath has guided you in your life?
It's there. I think so, yeah. I'm still an Eagle Scout. You're never over that.
Okay. Yeah. And what was your project as an Eagle Scout?
I painted the room for a local priest, his bedroom. Okay. It was kind of icky before, but much nicer after.
Okay. When you ran 2 years ago, you were there was a legal problem in the middle of your campaign. And I want to give you a chance to set the record straight on this, David, because people may remember the allegation that was made. They don't remember how it was disposed of. So 2 years ago this month, you were arrested by the Sioux Falls Police Department, charged with aggravated assault, as I recall, on a woman. And what were the circumstances? How was it resolved?
I was actually arrested twice. The second time was even more ridiculous than the first time. The second time, I was asleep, and somebody invaded my home because the door was unlocked. And then I got arrested and charged with disobeying a no-contact order. Now, it's pretty ridiculous that the city government would arrest me for something that somebody else did when I was sleeping.
So were there two separate incidents?
Two separate charges.
Okay, so what were you charged? What were the actual charges?
The second time it was violating a no-contact order.
Violating a no-contact order
when I was sleeping.
And aggravated assault.
That was the first time.
Okay.
Aggravated assault.
Same victim?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Same victim. Okay. So you pled not guilty, as I recall?
I pled not guilty at the arraignment hearing, and the charges were such complete and utter nonsense that the prosecutor dropped them right away.
So both charges withdrawn by the
prosecutor,
state's attorney.
Pretty much immediately.
Okay.
And that's why they let me out of jail on personal recognizance bond, because right off the get-go they knew the charges were total garbage. You don't let somebody off on by personal recognizance if it's a serious charge.
Well, I wanted to give you an opportunity to set the record straight because people will recall that you were arrested. They may not know how it was resolved. So
well, it was bogus and dropped quick, and then it was over.
Thank you for that. Would you please talk to us about leadership, and specifically your experiences as a leader, any lessons in leadership that you could share with us?
Leadership. Well, I've had plenty of leadership responsibilities starting from when I was growing up. Senior patrol leader in the Boy Scouts was one. At college, I was editor-in-chief of my yearbook. That was a substantial responsibility.
At RIT?
At RIT, yes. We put out a pretty nice book. So in leadership, you've got to take initiative and be able to accept feedback from other people and to be able to allocate things. But also you need to follow up with everybody because...
Other leadership things you've done as an adult?
I've had a family.
Okay.
Directed my life. Sure.
In the workplace, have you had leadership roles?
I interviewed for a couple of leadership jobs, but never really got any.
Okay. So most of your leadership experience was as a youth, is that fair to say?
Well, young adult at college, sure.
Okay. So if you think about your life, what would be some of, one or two of your proudest accomplishments?
Well, both of my daughters attended college at Augustana University on a full scholarship. And as a parent, I was busy giving them time and not money. Turns out that was a really wise investment strategy. It paid off really, really well. I've got two great kids. They're doing well in life. They're happy. They're well-adjusted. They're doing really well. And I think that's the finest accomplishment that anybody could ever have.
When it comes to public service, elected office, can you think of some people who would be role models for you? I'm talking about contemporary figures, maybe people in local government here or state government or at the national level. But who are some contemporary figures in public service, in public life that you admire and you know, their accomplishments, the way they conduct themselves is something, the same kind of standard you would aspire to achieve?
I hate to sound arrogant or cocky, but I don't really have any role models because I haven't found anybody who I think is worthy of the designation. I haven't seen anybody who's brave enough to tell the whole truth concerning what's going on in the world. I haven't seen anybody who's brave enough to say that we could reduce crime by changing the nation's alcohol and drug policy. And if people in politics don't have the gumption to be honest with these kind of issues, I don't think they're worthy of being a role model.
Well, then let's talk about the current administration in City Hall and the current department heads. Do you think that they are lacking in their capabilities and in their accomplishments?
I'm on pretty good terms with most of the department heads. We sent.
Do you admire them?
I'm on good terms with them. Let me just go that far to start with. We send email back and forth, and I keep them abreast on some of my PowerPoints and look for feedback, and they say thank you, and then we go on our merry way, and that's good enough for now.
But no role models among the department heads for you?
I think we're doing really well with what I talked about.
Okay. What about Paul Tenhaken?
No.
How do you rate Paul Tenhaken as the mayor of Sioux Falls, and how might you be different from him?
I would rate Paul Tenhaken as a normal kind of a mayor. Now, I don't really like this question because it's too personal. See, my beef is with the system. I think the system is designed to discourage honesty and integrity. And I'm very careful to criticize the system, but not the people. Because one, oh yeah, it's safe to criticize the system, but when you start to criticize the people, that's just too mean.
Do you think honesty and integrity are lacking in City Hall?
All right, now if you're going to pin me down here, I'm going to say that 8 years ago, the administration of Paul Tenhaken enacted a law about something mostly trivial, but it violated my First Amendment rights to free speech. And I pointed out 8 years ago that this is probably not okay, because I wasn't too sure back then. But about 3 weeks ago, I quoted him in City Council. I quoted him a couple of court cases that said that retaliation for First Amendment protected speech, even in a small way, is clearly unconstitutional. No wiggle room there. And this law was targeted against me, and I'm not happy about that.
Was that regarding public comment at council meetings, or was it something else?
Indeed it was, yes.
Okay.
For a little more detail, electronic presentations, clicking on a PowerPoint, used to be okay in public input at city council meetings. Well, after Paul Tenhaken took office, I was the only one doing all these PowerPoints, and City Hall, or the City Council and the mayor enacted a law that made that illegal. You had to go and flip slides on the overhead projector. Well, that's kind of crude by comparison to clicking a button, not nearly as professional. Well, since I was the only person who gave all those PowerPoints, rather clearly this law was directed against me and my First Amendment protected speech. So I'm not okay with that.
Okay.
Now, since we're on the subject, I've reported quite a long series of civil rights violations on the part of Sioux Falls Police Department. I've been detained without suspicion. That's in violation of Terry versus Ohio. I've been subjected to a drunken field side sobriety test without probable cause and without consent. And I've pointed out these kind of problems to City Council with PowerPoints and gotten no response. So there's something wrong with city government, not necessarily the mayor. There's something wrong with city government that allows these kinds of things to continue. Also, about 4 years ago, the city's own ethics board reported what they described as a widespread practice of accepting gifts of third-party paid travel. In other words, the city's ethics board said that bribery is common practice. Right? We got documentation on that. I asked the mayor and city council and the police chief and the county sheriff to investigate to figure out what's going on. No response from anybody. All right, so that means that the problem is not any particular person, it's the system. The system encourages civil rights abuses and bribery. All right? I got that documented. I don't like it. I think it's disgusting, but that's what's going on. And that's part of why I don't have any role models in local government. I'm too pissed off, really.
Let's talk about your personal skill set that's relevant to the role of mayor. Sioux Falls is a big business. $775 million budget, nearly 2,100 employees, both part-time and full-time. Our building permits in each of the last 5 years have exceeded $1 billion. So we're a growing community. One year we got close to $2 billion. We're a city now of, I think, 225,000 people by the end of your first term, if you're elected. The population would be pushing 250,000. Talk about your specific skill set as it relates to finance and budget, workforce management, planning, problem solving, and governing a growing city of nearly 250,000 people. Your personal skill set that's related to the role of mayor.
That's quite a huge list of responsibilities. Good thing I don't have to be perfect at everything. Good thing that I know that my job is vision and allocating details to most everybody else. Okay, so you picked a whole bunch of issues there. Let's pick one in particular. Problem solving, I think it was on your list. All right, that's been my whole life, problem solving. I go into a work environment, figure out where the issues are, and document things and organize things, and pretty soon the problems are gone, and then I get laid off because I worked myself out of a job. So maybe I'll get lucky, or maybe I'll be blessed by doing that one more time in a bigger system. If you look at politics as a system, like computers a system, it's got inputs and processes and motivations and outputs. And if you look at all the different components and how they interrelate, well then, a little tweak here and a little tweak there, and pretty soon the system is optimized and everything works better. So that's not really much of a change.
Do you have experience in accounting or in business, in finance, in human resources, as you consider taking over here as the leader of a big operation?
Accounting, yes, I've had some minor experience in accounting. When you campaign for office, you got to keep track of your income and your expenses. You have to plan your expenses and try not and make sure that they don't exceed your income. Or sometimes you increase your income to match your expenses, but that doesn't usually work that well. So yes, I'm aware of the finite resources available in accounting and in government, and will be very careful not to over-allocate our limited financial resources with overly grand plans. That's why I always talk about practical government. I mean, it's okay to have grand aspirations, but only if you can make them concrete with practical planning and by staying inside your limited budget.
So you've brought up vision a few times here. Let's take this at a very high level. What is your overall vision for what this city might look like 4 years hence, at a high level? And then we're going to start drilling down into specific topics.
For the most part, I think Sioux Falls has achieved great success. If you look around, we don't have any slum areas, so that's always a good indication. Downtown is beautiful and growing and expanding. The economy is booming. We're investing in infrastructure. Some relative industrial problems are moving away. We've got great amounts of investment and growth and opportunity. So it's going along really well. And as long as I don't throw a whole bunch of giant wrenches into the works, that's going to be going really, really well in 4 years. And I'm not going to throw any giant wrenches into the works. I'm going to grease the joints and help things go better. One of the things that we're going to work on is the redevelopment of that big area where Smithfield's food is leaving. And we're not going to go and just turn it into an average suburb. I want to introduce ancient, modern ideas, there is such a thing, with the new urbanism movement.
Well, let's hold that thought for a minute.
Okay.
Let's still stay on a very high level.
Oh, yeah.
This vision you have for the city, is your vision that we would have continued growth? What do you have targets in terms of the population size? I mean, what would be different overall that we would really notice 4 years hence if you were elected as mayor?
All right, it's going to grow because that's I'm not going to stop that. I would not want to stop that. But one thing we would see is the homeless people walking the streets looking for money. We're going to fix that right away. And the redesign of downtown is substantial. That's going to be a major accomplishment. And we will have more efficient, more open, more honest government. We're going to make some really large changes there. And we will grant the police more training so that they're more mindful of our constitutional liberties and won't bother me the next time I go out knocking on doors to collect signatures for my nominating petition.
So, David, if you are elected, you would have some fresh political capital, but you'd also have finite resources, finite dollars here. What are your top 3 or 4 priorities in year number 1? I'm sure there are other things you'd have to push off to subsequent years, but in year number 1, what are you going to tackle first?
Now, it's important to note that sometimes you can make great changes and not spend any money. People don't really notice that, but it's the truth. So we have a big problem with affordable housing. And a lot of that's by design, really. It's designed into the system. Because in suburbia, we have big houses and big lots. And that means big money. Well, I mean, if you want affordable housing, you have to change zoning so that you can pack small houses on small lots and stick them close together.
So tackling the affordable housing issue would be one of your first 3 or 4 priorities?
Oh, yes, it is.
What are the other 2 or 3?
Another important priority is to tackle the homelessness issue in Sioux Falls. And this is another situation where it's cheaper to fix a problem than it is to ignore it. Because homeless people generate a lot of emergency calls, and those are expensive.
Okay, we'll drill down that in a moment. Give me 2 more.
2 more.
In the first year, priorities you're going to address in the first year.
We're going to reduce crime with addiction therapy. And there's 3.
Okay, let's drill down on each of those. The homelessness issue. How big a homeless population do we have in the city of Sioux Falls? What problems is it causing for us? And what is the role of city government in addressing it?
I don't know how many homeless people we have, but I do know that it's painful to drive around and to see them everywhere. So however many we have, it's too many.
Okay. So what is city government's role in tackling that issue?
The first thing you have to do is realize that it's cheaper to house the homeless than to ignore them. We talked about that briefly before. So as soon as you figure that out, well, then you go, well, all right, well, then let's house the homeless. They need daytime shelter, nighttime shelter. And not just housing, but long-term counseling.
Just hold the microphone closer there, David.
Long-term counseling.
Again, what is the role of city government in tackling that? Are you saying that the city of Sioux Falls should build a larger homeless shelter that's accessible in the daytime as well as nighttime.
That's correct, yes.
So that would be one of the first things you would want to tackle is building well, what is your vision for that?
We also need to figure out what's wrong with the current shelters. So hopefully we'll be able to talk to some homeless people or some experienced staff members and say, why are the people wandering around? What's wrong with the existing shelters? Because it's cheaper to correct deficiencies in existing shelters than to build new ones.
So is the issue the homeless at night, or is it a problem that they have no place in the daytime to go?
I think it's both. And additionally, they just don't seem to get enough long-term counseling help. The city provides 3 days of detox at the link. Well, that's not near enough. They need 3 years to put their lives back together. And there's a school out west somewhere, I forget the name right now, who's the Other Side Academy. They've figured out how they can build.
It's in Utah, is it not?
Yeah. They figured out how to solve all these problems, how to build a shelter without costing taxpayers money, how to provide long-term care, how to help troubled people reclaim their lives. And so we don't have to redesign the wheel. We just need to rely on what's already been done.
But you believe that city government has a role
Yes.
in providing more shelter for the homeless in Sioux Falls,
Yes.
and that the city of Sioux Falls should take a greater role in the treatment of drug and alcohol addiction. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely, for sure.
Okay, using taxpayer dollars.
Turns out it saves money, so yes, using taxpayer dollars. It's an investment in people that brings tremendous returns to the city. I found a study that says that for every dollar spent in addiction treatment, you get $4 back.
Okay.
So you got to say the return on investment instead of just spending taxpayers' dollars.
Let's move. This keeps dying on me. I don't know why this keeps going off, but excuse me for that. Let's tackle public safety.
Here.
I don't know if it's not charged or what.
Just use mine. We'll trade back and forth.
Yeah, I think the battery's almost dead on this one. What would you do related to public safety? Do you think that there should be increased investment in policing, a larger police force, a larger fire and rescue force, EMTs? I mean, how are you going to attack? You mentioned the need to keep crime as low as possible. How are you going to attack that, and what is the role of city government in achieving that?
I visited the penitentiary one year, and they told me that most of the people were in there due to alcohol-related problems, and right behind it was illegal drug-related problems. So that tells me if we're going to improve public safety, we need to treat alcohol and drug use as a public safety problem and not as a problem with crimes in jail and police. If the state wants to spend $666 million on a new high-security prison, if we could take a third of that and build and fund treatment centers, we wouldn't need that big freaking monster prison because we would prevent crime before it even starts. Just a minute here. Okay, so we got to remember.
But again, so you're saying that city government should take the responsibility in treating drug and alcohol addiction beyond the 3 days.
If the federal government and the state government and the county government don't have the brains to do what's right, then it's up to the city.
Okay. What about police staffing in the city? What about fire and rescue and other resources in the area of public safety?
I don't know if the police are understaffed. I've seen quite the group of police involved in mere traffic stops. And if that's, I don't know why they would need so many people to give somebody a speeding ticket or but anyway, based on that observation, I don't see how the police could say that they are understaffed. I might see how they could say that they are undertrained because they only get 3 months of full-time training. And I don't think that that's near enough considering the stress of the job and the job requirements and the difficulty involved. I think they need more training.
Well, didn't the city just make an enormous investment in a training center?
Having a training center is a lot different than giving people 6 months of training or a whole year instead of 3 months.
So
but yes, the city did spend that money, and they need to spend more money because police need more training.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you think that we have the size of our police force and our fire and rescue is sufficient, but we should give them more time for training than we are today? Is that what I'm hearing?
I have no data to support or reject claims that the city is understaffed or overstaffed. I don't know. So before I answer that question, I got to get some data. Okay. I just don't know. But I can see where more training would be beneficial. And I'd like to see some emergency first aid training by police because they're on the scene sometimes much faster than everybody else.
And you don't think that they receive first aid training now?
Well, they only get 3 months. I can't see how very much of that would be for first aid.
Okay. Housing. That was one of your other top 3 priorities in number 1.
It's a big deal, affordable housing.
What can you achieve in 1 year regarding housing?
In 1 year, well, it's pretty hard to redesign everything in 1 year, but you can certainly redesign zoning and work with builders and developers to help them jump on board with your vision of a better way to design a city. We can encourage mixed-use development and compact development and all that. But, you know, I'm being realistic. It's going to take a while for some of these things to work their way through.
So how would rezoning encourage developers to build? I assume you're referring to more affordable housing?
If you can make it cheaper and economically viable to build affordable housing, people are going to build it. Right now, it's kind of impractical to build affordable housing due to lot sizes and setback requirements and parking minimums. But if you roll back those requirements, well, then you can build affordable housing. And you don't necessarily have to rely on builders at that point because, you know, your home handyman might decide to put up a backyard house. And if that's legal, well, then they can do it. And that would also build affordable housing and help to prop this, the high price of buying a house. Tiny houses, prefab houses, a lot of these things, they're practical, they're reasonable, but they're zoned out. So we need to change zoning to allow them. And then, yeah, we can build affordable housing in a year.
Okay, let's go back to your growth and economic development. You talked about the current Smithfield site. As Smithfield moves up into the Foundation Park with their $1 billion new facility, what is your vision for what you want to do with what's now, I think, called the Sanford District, or will be called the Sanford District? What's your vision for that, David?
There's a huge area that's going to be the expansion of downtown, where Smithfield used to be, where the penitentiary still is, and the city has a big highway maintenance part of there too. The whole area should be really redeveloped using those ancient, modern, new urbanism principles we talked about before, pedestrian friendly, art scattered about, a lot of small public meeting places, mixed use development, compact development, not building everything around cars, but making it so that people can get out of their cars and walk to the grocery store or maybe walk to work. And all of that, it seems revolutionary, but it's actually a return to practices that have been practiced for thousands of years. So that's my vision in a nutshell, with art and beauty and green space all over. And it's not really even going to cost anymore. It's just wrapping your head around a different approach and getting away from cars and getting back to people walking around.
So in your first term, if you're elected, you would have a major responsibility to land the plane with Smithfield at their new site. All right. What challenges do you see with that? Do you agree with the TIF that has been offered? Do you agree with other accommodations to allow Smithfield to proceed with a $1 billion project?
I'm comfortable with TIFs in general because they are a property tax gift, usually to rich established businesses. And I think if we're going to give away taxpayer dollars, then it would be a whole lot more efficient to give them away to startups owned by local people as opposed to big multinational corporations.
So if you had been mayor this past year, you would have opposed the TIF for Smithfield?
Quite possibly. I would not have given $100 million away so freely.
So if you are elected mayor, are you going to look for ways to ensure that the project is completed, or will you try to stop it?
If a TIF is already granted, I don't know that a new mayor would have authority to roll it back. Now, this goes back to practical government. I might be opposed to TIFs until hell freezes over, but that doesn't mean I'm going to go back and try to change an agreement that's already in place.
Let's talk about other potential development in the city's center. The Riverline District, that's 9 acres, and then the viaduct area. Also, downtown projects, perhaps even the completion of the central ramp, which is now strictly a parking garage. What's your vision for, and what's your position on development of the Riverline District, the viaduct, and anything else downtown?
If you're going to have a healthy city, it's got to grow. So there's some underdeveloped areas that are going to be replaced with better ones. One of those is probably the Riverline District. So yeah, we'll redesign it with those principles that we talked about for Smithfields and make it beautiful and wonderful and nice. And at the same time we do that, we need to take care of the homeless people that are currently in that area. We don't need to displace them just to be mean to homeless people, just to make a part of town prettier. We need to treat them responsibly and with care and some compassion, and maybe they should just stay right where they are.
The Riverline District might include a convention center. Do you think that we should proceed with a convention center in the Riverline District?
I don't know that we need a new convention center. The Premier Center seems to work pretty well. I don't know that we've outgrown it already. And I'm kind of leery about how the government of Sioux Falls has worked these giant construction projects because they've all been done with too much secrecy. And we know that usually doesn't work out very well.
Where have you seen secrecy?
Way back in about 8 years ago when Mayors Paul Tinhaken and Mike Euther approved a parking garage that was never finished, all the while knowing that the price for parking space was about 2.5 times the market average in the Midwest. And all the while, I repeatedly asked at city council meetings for more information with regard to the project, and of course got absolutely nowhere. Now, you would think that if you stand in front of the mayor and city council and say, hey, I got some questions, you would think that in an open government, somebody would get back to you. Nothing, nobody, ever.
So that's referred to as the central ramp. So if you were mayor, what would you do about finishing off that central ramp with, the original vision was that there was going to be a hotel part of that. There was also going to be office and retail attached to it. The foundation is built so it can support many more stories above it. So what is your vision for completing that project?
Okay, that project is a bit of an economic problem. The original builder bailed out on the city. It'd be nice to complete it, but I don't know that we need to spend a whole lot of city funds to fix a bad project. And I'm not really sure what to do beyond that. Now, I've said before that it's my job to have a vision, and sometimes it's my job to rely on other people. And this is one time when I don't have a good plan. I mean, I might have 200 PowerPoints, but I only have 500. So this is one time when I'm going to have to rely on other people to figure out what to do with that.
If the Riverline District comes to pass, and if there's other commercial development that goes into the Sanford District, and if someday that central ramp is completed, it's probably going to be a public-private partnership. Would you agree?
I don't know.
Well, if it is a private, if private developers are involved, will you favor TIFs as a way to bring those projects to fruition, or would you be resistant to TIFs?
Pretty much every construction project can be described as a private-public partnership because it's public funds implemented by private builders. Okay, so now whether or not the city needs to subsidize a private builder to finish that project, again, I'm going to have to stall on this one. I just haven't figured it out.
Okay. Let's talk about infrastructure and public works. What do you think is what is your vision for traffic flow, streets? Do you think that we do a good job already with, our water, our sewer, even our airport? We've got an airport expansion going on right now. Other major things involving public works. What's the current state, and what is your vision for how things might be improved?
The city seems to do this really well. We've got a planning department looks a decade or two in advance. They plan utility growth. They plan street growth. And as far as I can tell, they do a Jim Dandy job of it. So if they're doing a good job, I have no reason to change anything there.
Any major concerns?
That being said, it's a very car-centric design that they've put together. But that's typical for modern American cities. Everything's designed around a car. If you don't have a car, it's not no good. You can't get around anywhere. And that's kind of because we spend this much money on building new roads and that much money on maintaining the roads and about this much money on public transit. So if we could take some of this huge expense on building roads and switch that to public transit, well, then you could probably take a bus everywhere. And then you might not need a car, and you could save a whole lot of money doing that.
So what is your vision for public transit?
So I would like to see new development redesigned to incorporate more pedestrian-friendly, more walkable, more bike paths, and better public transit. Now, I know that we could spend more on public transit and get better public transit, but again, I only have 200 PowerPoints, not 500 PowerPoints, so I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay. What about signature initiatives, David? When you ask Paul Tenakin about what did he accomplish over the last 8 years, one of the things that he points out was this citywide mentoring initiative, SU 52. I think that's one of his proudest accomplishments. Is there something like that? Is there a signature initiative that you'd want to pursue?
I think if we can help the homeless, I would call that a great and smashing success. When we build affordable housing, that would be a marvelous success.
Okay. If you have questions, I would encourage you to write them on the cards and then pass them forward. Just raise your hand and they'll bring the cards up front, and then we'll try to get through as many of your questions as possible. So.
Now you said if there was something that I thought was important that you didn't bring up, I could talk about it.
Why don't we do that after these questions? All right.
I'm getting itchy.
We'll see if their questions bring up some other topics. And then at the end, if we have missed something, David, we're going to give you a full opportunity.
I think it'll be missed.
You think it'll be missed? Okay.
I think it'll be missed.
Okay. Hold that thought, David. And I also want to thank those who are watching this on Facebook. And for everybody's information, the Village Co-op does archive this. It's posted to Facebook, so you can look at these later as well. I'm going to have to put on my glasses. All right, David. You said that you want more honest city government. What is dishonest about city government now?
I think the biggest problem with government in general, this is what I wanted to talk about before, is that people aren't honest about who they work for and why. Biggest problem in government.
And we're talking about city government now.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, it takes roughly $200,000 to win a campaign for the mayor of Sioux Falls. All right, and for that $200 million, $200,000, you might get $200 million back in terms of secret construction projects and in terms of TIFs, which are tax subsidies. So for 200,000 in, you get 200 million back. And I think that that is immensely dishonest. And it's not just Sioux Falls where that's a problem. It's pretty much every election in the United States. And as soon as candidates...
So I want to be sure I'm hearing this correctly. You're saying that the system of TIFs is inherently dishonest?
The system, as currently implemented, the system of campaign finance is inherently dishonest. And
in the city of Sioux Falls?
In the city is everywhere, in the city of Sioux Falls in particular.
What makes it dishonest?
As I was saying before, it forces candidates to work for their industrial donors and not to work for the voters. You've got to work for the people who are getting you in office, and the people who really get you into office are the people who fund your campaign.
So you think the current campaign financing arrangement in the city of Sioux Falls for the mayor's race or the city council race, you think that's inherently dishonest?
Indeed it is, because it forces people to work for donations and not work for the voters.
So would you favor some kind of government-supported or taxpayer-supported campaign financing?
I favor campaign financing by public funds, like you asked, because that way elected leaders would work for the public. But that's only part of it. The other part is that we use a voting method that promotes extremism because the moderate candidates all compete against each other, while the outliers, have less competition. And because of the center split spoiler effect, all the moderates compete against each other and lose, while it's more likely for the extremists to win. And the way to prevent this problem is with score voting. We can't use ranked choice. I believe South Dakota has made that illegal.
Okay.
I'm not happy about
That's
that.
probably a whole other issue. Let's try another question. Do you think there is a high risk in giving TIFs to startups versus firms with a proven track record? You increase your risk by granting a TIF to a startup organization or company versus one that's already well established.
If the goal of a TIF is to promote economic development, then that TIF should be provided to startups, because startups do a lot more economic development than established businesses do. Now, while there's more risk with an individual award to a startup, there's also more reward. In general, I think that if you're going to subsidize a business, you should subsidize small startups because you have more reward and you better support the local economy. And that's true whether the support is with the TIF or with some other method.
You mentioned public support for alcohol and drug counseling, for training for the police force, for homeless facilities. Where will that money come from?
Now, this is kind of related to the who does government work for question, because if the elected leaders work for the voters and they're not giving away all kinds of money with secret contracts or with TIFs, then they'll save a whole lot of money in those areas and can use that for promoting public safety with addiction treatment services. And another way to promote public safety is to inform people that alcohol is indeed the most dangerous recreational drug out there. Now, that's not my opinion. I don't come up with these things all by myself. I researched literature and found a study in The Lancet, it's a premier British medical journal, that ranks alcohol as the most dangerous recreational drug. Well, I think we've seen people going crazy at a wedding and making a real mess of things. Well, that's because alcohol is a dangerous recreational drug. And I would like to see the federal government and the state government and the county government and the city government, because nobody else is going to do it, embarking on a public safety campaign to inform people that alcohol is not the safest stuff out there.
Again, though, the question
Yes.
is, where are you going to get the money to pay for drug and alcohol counseling, training for the police force, and these homeless facilities that you're proposing?
By reducing the corruption in government, by eliminating secret deals, and by not giving away hundreds of millions of dollars in tips to companies that already have enough money. That's how. Now really, you got to remember that the donation is $1 in and $1,000 out. Tremendous opportunity for grift doing that kind of system.
City department directors, would you replace any of the current directors? I think 3 of them are already retiring or leaving us, but would you replace any of the other current directors that are essentially in the mayor's cabinet?
My plan with my vision is to bring people along and help them to do the kind of research that I've done, to take my vision and make it their vision. And if I do that, I don't have to replace people. I can just teach them. The city has a tremendous, 2,000 employees. I'm not going to replace all of those. I don't need to.
But the question is about department directors,
need
David.
to replace department heads either. My plan is to teach them and to lead them and not throw them out.
Very good. Should the city's amenities, and this question singles out swimming pools, golf courses, ball fields, parks, etc., should the city's amenities be self-sustaining with fees? Should we charge fees for using our parks and recreation facilities? I know there is a fee now for the Midco Aquatic Center, I believe. I don't know about others.
Roads are free. I mean, they're paid for with taxes. City parks are paid for with taxes. I don't know right now that we really need user fees. The city budget is balanced. We're not at a shortage of income. So if we don't need to charge fees for baseball fields, then we don't need to, and then we won't do that.
What do you think about the quality of those so-called amenities in the city of Sioux Falls? Parks, recreation, golf courses, swimming pools.
As far as I can tell, they're all really, really good.
Any vision there for improving those?
I recorded a short little reel for social video a little while ago, and I talked about how beautiful Lake Madison was and how we need to build more parks along the river. But first, we need to partner with the state so we can clean up the Big Sioux River because it's polluted. So that's a vision for not just Sioux Falls, cleaner rivers and better navigation by boaters, but that's a vision for the state. And that's a little out of the job of mayor, but I think if I approach state officials with evidence that cleaning up the river is profitable, then we can get it to happen.
So does the city of Sioux Falls have a role or a responsibility in cleaning up the Big Sioux River, which is regarded as one of the most polluted waterways in America?
We can sure work on it, yes. I plan to. Okay. It's part of the earth, and that's our home, and if we dump crap in it, it's not going to like us very well, and we're going to get kicked off.
Are there other questions that we have before we close this out with a couple of my questions. Anything else? Okay. Talk about other priority areas that we did not touch upon here, David. Did we fail to bring up something that's a burning issue?
I talked about this a little bit before, but I got to bring it up again because it is so fundamental to the failure of modern American government. And the failure is that the government does not work for the people. And if you understand election dynamics, you should not expect government to work for the people. And if there's any problems out there, chances are they come down to this issue, which is also related to greed and the lust for power. So let's suppose, for example, that we have a penitentiary full of people who have problems with drugs and alcohol. Well, I mean, if you're busy propping up the drug and alcohol industry, then you don't want a public safety message going up and saying, hey, alcohol is dangerous. And you don't want treatment centers that say alcohol is dangerous. Okay, so the public safety problem is exhibited by all the people in the Hill for alcohol-related crimes is related to the government not working for the people and instead working for the alcohol industry.
So relate that to the role of the mayor of the city of Sioux Falls.
And this is all very insidious because we have the appearance of a democracy, but the workings of an oligarchy, which is government for the rich, government for rich industries. All right, and what's the role of the mayor? Well, one is being right here saying this is disgusting and we need to change it. And the mayor of Sioux Falls, as long as he can get his department heads to agree with him, I'm not going to be a dictator, but the mayor of Sioux Falls can start a public safety campaign to say, hey, alcohol is something that we should be getting off of. Now, that's kind of a reach, but that's an important part of what we should do if we want the city to be safer and if we want to reduce crime. But that all comes back to this one big elephant that nobody wants to see in the room, and that elephant is that the government does not work for the voters because of the way that campaign finance works.
The job of mayor is a difficult one. It's it's incredibly demanding. You face a lot of negativity, a lot of second guessing. Paul Tenakin said at times that it was emotionally exhausting for him to serve as mayor. How would you remain fit and healthy, grounded, energized, and enthusiastic throughout your term as mayor?
It's my guess that the job of being mayor is easier than the job of getting to be mayor. And I'm doing all right. I'm healthy. I keep working out. I eat well. I exercise. All I have to do is just keep it up. I don't think that the job of mayor is going to be any worse than what I'm doing now, because it's I don't have to worry about where my next meal is coming from. I've got a salary coming in. I've got staff. I've got plans like crazy. So a lot of the hard stuff is already done. It's a matter of being able to deal with the people, and I'm already on good terms with the department heads, and I'm going to meet with the city council members as soon as I get elected. I don't see how that's a big deal. I think it'll be just fine. It'll be fun. It'll be a challenge, but I don't see as how it's going to be any worse than what I'm doing now.
David, I want to let you close this out with some kind of closing statement, and maybe it's what really distinguishes you from the other four candidates. Why should voters elect you as the next mayor of the city of Sioux Falls?
Why am I different from everybody else? Well, I mean, maybe we should ask my parents that. But yes, I'm different. I'm brave enough to follow the truth no matter where it takes me. I don't abide by any dogma. And that's just a really rare trait. If I look at a system and say, hey, the system has this major fundamental weakness, I don't need to lie about that. I don't need to fib about that. I can say that campaign finance means that we have an oligarchy. I can say that the city will give hundreds of millions of dollars away. Do you have any idea how much money that is? Hundreds of millions of dollars. I can say this kind of stuff, and I can have the evidence to support it, and nobody else does that. I can say that we could build treatment centers, and then we wouldn't need so many prisons. Nobody else has that kind of courage. Nobody. I mean, not just in Sioux Falls, but you look out and then I don't hear anybody saying that. We have a bunch of wimps running for office and cowards. Is everybody so tied into protecting the establishment that they can't speak the God-honest truth? So yes, I do bring something very unusual. So some determination to speak the truth and honesty and integrity, and not just crazy ideas, but everything that I talk about is always researched and documented. All the PowerPoints carry references and journal articles, and I'm not dreaming up any crazy insanity. I'm not relying on social media for bad ideas. I'm not relying on crazy, insane articles. No, it's all carefully researched. It's all well documented, and it's honest. And some people are afraid of that. And well, I'm like, too bad. I mean, I'm not gonna lie about the world just to make you comfortable, because it's a way to result in failure. If we want to change things, if we want a better world, then we have to be honest enough to realize that things are kind of messed up now, and we need to be brave enough to understand why they're messed up so we can solve the fundamental problems, because otherwise we're just, painting lipstick on a cow, so to speak.
In Sioux Falls, as Sioux Falls voters, we're extremely fortunate. We have 5 individuals who are committing themselves to public service, putting themselves out there, running for public office. And those of you who are participating in this process, we get an in-depth look at each of the 5 candidates. I mean, when you make your decision, you'll have, you can be confident in your decision based on what you have learned in attending these 5 sessions. Next week, Tuesday, April 28th, we'll have Greg Jameson here, and then we'll finish up the following week with Jamie Smith. There's one other opportunity I want to point out to you, and that is there's a forum tonight at Augustana University at 6 o'clock. I believe you're going to be there, David, aren't you?
Oh, you better believe it.
So all 5 candidates are going to appear tonight at Augustana University. It's in Hammering Recital Hall, 6 o'clock. It's open to the public. There's no charge. So if you're available tonight and you want to see all 5 together in a forum, then stop by Augustana University this evening. Stephanie Herseth-Sandlin, the president of Augustana, is moderating that discussion. With that, David, I want to thank you so much for being so responsive to our questions, mine as well as the audience's questions, and I want to thank you for your commitment to running for public office.
It's been a pleasure, Jack. It has. It's been a